Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Stories That Sparkle podcast. I'm Hella Rader, and woohoo, this is the 1 year anniversary celebrationary episode of the Stories That Sparkle podcast. Yeah, woohoo. Yeah, I started this podcast 1 year ago. The first episode came out May 14th, 2025. Holy smokes. And wow, what a difference a year makes is all I can say. So, I just want to celebrate a couple of things and then get into a current topic that I'm working with others on, and also sidebar note of what's next for me, the podcast, things in general. So that's a rough outline, y'all. And unlike in the past, especially when I first started this podcast a year ago, in which I would have to write down things I was going to say in like almost verbatim, read them here, or spend days and hours within those days stitching together my own sentences from fragmented words to create some kind of coherence. I'm really excited that I don't have to do that today, and my editing times have been whittled down. Most episodes require very little editing. It's very exciting. And in fact, I'm recording this episode day of release, holy smokes, which is quite the risky endeavor because it means I don't have a lot of time to edit. So woo. And I'm really excited because I know today that I have a much better grasp on my own voice and how I speak and articulating my thoughts more coherently, especially when they're recorded and I can hear my own voice literally in the headphones. So yeah, I feel like this is a perfect way to mark this occasion, this 1 year anniversary, and just kind of wing it and let myself just talk with y'all. Yeah. So without further ado, I invite you to get comfortable, sit back, and listen in. I'm Hella Rader. With a good sense of humor, an open heart, and an open mind, I love to explore the very human complexities in others and in myself. That's why I created a space for women you have never heard of and could easily pass on the street to share in their own voices the intricacies of starting over in life, building community, inhabiting their bodies, and more. Welcome to our Disco Ball, the stories that sparkle. All right, y'all. So as part of my little mini retrospective over the last year, I just want to say that the hard part for me about starting this podcast was not the technical aspect of it. No, I have a master's degree, little known fact, perhaps, maybe not, in media studies, which I got from the New School University all the way back in 2000, a very different media time for sure. But my focus in that program was on video and audio production. So I did a lot of editing, lots of audio recording, lots of audio editing, lots of video recording and video editing. So the technical aspects of doing a podcast was not the part that scared me or concerned me. I knew that part I would pretty easily figure out and would call upon my old skills, and I would just would need to brush up on those things or practice doing them. So what scared me, what was harder for me, was the talking, the actual talking, and not knowing what I was talking about or what I would have to say, what I would have to offer to anyone out in anywhere. So that was the biggest hurdle for me to overcome, and doing it week after week after week, driving around the country and recording like days like in a row, back to back to back, which is a lot. It's kind of intense. I learned from that as well. But yeah, just this practicing and doing it, and whether it was perfect or not worrying about it and putting it out into the world anyway, and starting to more and more go off script and not have to read things that I had prepared. And even the intro I used to have to read, and the outro, like I would have to write them up and read them as I recorded them. I don't have to do any of that anymore. So it's really quite exciting. And I think it's a really important tool is to look back, and step back and look back and see, wow, I started here and now I'm here. I've come a long way, and it doesn't have to be perfect, or it doesn't have to be the total end of the road. It's just, wow, let me look back at some of the big shifts that have happened over a period of time. It's a really great tool that I use for a lot of different things, and this one included. So anyway, it's just been nice to sort of sit back and spend some time looking back over the last year and sitting with, it's really easy for me. Let me put it this way. It's really easy for me to blow past things that I do. Like last week, I did a talk here in Winchester, Virginia, for a group of women of Winchester. It's a women's networking luncheon. It happens every month. And I was the featured speaker, and y'all, it was not perfect. Okay, I had a PowerPoint that I don't even know why I did that, because I'm not a PowerPoint gal, but I did it anyway. I wanted to challenge myself, figured out right from the get-go that this was, nope, that's not me. So improvised on the fly as I'm talking. I went on longer than I was supposed to. People were engaged. They were enjoying themselves. People came up to me afterwards and definitely got something out of it. But wow, that was intense. And, for me, because I was like, I'm out here on the limb doing something I've always wanted to do, but I'm doing for the first time. And it was very nerve-wracking. And I was like crashed out for 2 days afterwards from a serious emotional hangover from that. But my point in all of that is, I have a tendency to just blow past something, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'll just blow past it and just keep going and stay busy and not sit with the discomfort. So last week, because of my emotional hangover, I kind of was wiped out for a couple of days. And then after that, found it really difficult to remotivate and get back at it, whatever at it meant or was. And so I sat with that, and I thought, well, I'm going to do something a little bit different and actually sit with that and sit with myself. And in the process of that, I looked back a little bit further, not just to last year when I launched the podcast. I looked back to 2 years ago, this same time of year, actually almost exactly the May 16th. I will never forget it because I wrote it down for a reason. I was in quite a state. I was wrapping up the first draft of my memoir, Beyond the Wall. So that was finishing up. I couldn't find my iPad. I do civic service here in town, and I had been, given an iPad as part of that, and I could not find it. I was like in a total panic as to like where it is. My shoulder was completely frozen up, and not just because of menopause. I mean, that is a symptom of menopause, but it wasn't that. I was tired and stressed out, and I couldn't I literally felt like I could not hold myself up. Like I just could not hold myself up. And I had a session with my somatic practitioner. I actually wrote about it in this week's post, Wrong Answer, on my Substack, hellarader.substack.com. Little side plug there for that. And I dialed into my session with her, and I just lay there on the floor with my hoodie pulled over my head because I was like, I cannot move. I was in such a deep surrender because I knew in my soul and in my gut and in all of me that I needed to leave my job for a whole bunch of reasons that are not necessarily important right this second, but I'm happy to share with you if you're curious some other time. But I knew that it was time, that was like, as I was finishing up my book, and Barbara, my mentor, my spiritual mom, was, very ill, and I knew had limited time left. I just knew that I needed to move on and away from and forward from the job that I was doing at the time. And I was terrified because I was like, but how am I going to make money? And that was at the heart of it all. And this week, as I sat with that surrender, that moment of just having this full body shutdown awareness that I can't do this anymore. I can't do what I'm doing anymore the way that I'm doing it. Something needs to give. Something needs to change. I could not, for the life of me, I just couldn't surrender it. I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. And what I realized this week, as I took some time to sit and absorb and celebrate my 1-year podcast anniversary with myself, but also looking back to how far I've come since May 16th, 2024, I realized that underneath, like this thing that drives me, that propels me to overdo and get real busy and blow past accomplishments and not celebrate my successes, or really sit with things that I consider to be failures, like not getting something I want, but just keep going and pushing harder, is fundamentally connected to some ideas I have around money, or at least on the surface, I would say it appears to be about the money, right? So for example, in that moment in 2024, my surrender, my resistance to what I knew to be true about myself, which is this needs to end. This job situation is no longer tenable for a variety of reasons. It's not in alignment with who I am and where I am in my life at this moment. But the fear around money and not making money and how will I make money kicked in. And I was like, no, I cannot afford, literally, it feels like, to step away from that, even though I have the savings and even though I have retirement money that I can pull from. And that is how I'm supporting myself today. It just didn't feel responsible or legit. Like I have to earn it. I have to make it. I have to do and execute and perform to have worth and have value. And that underneath really then connects to my greatest fear in life, that is very much tied up with just survival. And I don't mean just the survival of making money in order to buy food. I mean, that is also obviously a very real world, very real consideration that money is required for things like that. So I don't want to dismiss that. But even more fundamental underneath that is, even though the reality on the surface was, I don't have to fear that because I have money and resources sitting here that I can use if I needed to. The real fear of all of that actually was, I'm all alone in the world. So it's all on me, and I need to, keep the panic of survival at bay because I am all alone. So I will endure and put up with and stay in situations that are not actually good for me, that are not in alignment with who I am, because, it's better than being alone. And that has manifested itself in a bajillion different patterns in all kinds of different ways across various relationships, both romantic and also friendships and everything in between, family, you name it. That has been the fundamental driver. And that fear of being alone, of being left alone, of being annihilated and left to die, basically, because I can't fend for myself or take care of myself, which was a different messaging I received, will drive me, and money attached itself to that. So I will stay in things or not move forward in myself and in my life because I'm afraid of being all alone in the world. And if I'm all alone in the world, I will perish. I will be dead. So So yeah, it's a very powerful old belief, an old idea that is not conscious most of the time. And so I'm not generally aware that it's the driver behind my quote panic and busyness. And then often subsequent complete collapse because it's not sustainable to live like that and to do that way. So I say all of that as part of my 1-year anniversary of the podcast because over the last year of doing this podcast, I've learned a lot about that tendency in myself. I've watched it play out over and over again, and at different times have not been able to stop myself. I mean, even that speaking engagement I did last week, I overthought that one too. I mean, I had like 4 or 5 sticky note iterations of it. And because I felt like I had to work at it. I had to work extra hard and effort to have something of value to say to these women. And really, and looking back afterwards, just the other day, I was looking at iteration number 2 and realized like, wow, I could have just gone with that one. Like I did all this extra work and spent all this extra time that really wasn't necessary. And if I had just stuck with the earlier iteration, it would have felt much more genuine to myself. And so I get in my own way is what I'm trying to say with being this kind of busy, but that busyness is attached to proving to myself, proving to somebody else that I have value, that I have worth, and it's driven by this panic of survival, right? So that's the thing that I look to work with and learn from as I move forward in the podcast. And to that end, I have already changed up the release schedule to be every other week to create some time and space for myself, both for other things and also just to calm down and be in a more realistic pacing. Also, part of that is I have lined up several. I've already talked to a few that have released, but coming up will be a few more conversations with women founders. And so sometimes we have versions of this conversation, and sometimes money is a part of the conversation because that's obviously been up for me, but also it's a common thread, which is a big thing I learned in doing this podcast at all is how much I've learned from hearing other women, which was the whole point of starting this podcast, was to, gain the wisdom of others and their experiences. And also, it's ironic to me that a whole big part of that for me was to share those stories so that other people would know that they are not alone in this world. Meanwhile, I'm still quietly struggling with feeling all alone in this world. So I have certainly gotten the benefit of listening to these stories and knowing that, wow, I thought that was just something I think about, but apparently not. It's a more common phenomenon. And growing out of all of this, I'm officially launched in my somatic coaching practice. So you can check out embodyandcreate.com. This is where I add to the direction. So having this podcast and creating a platform for other women to share their stories. And then over there with Embody and Create, working with women one-on-one to help them reveal, release, and reclaim, to bring forth what's already within you. And to move beyond some of these old ideas and beliefs by connecting to and inhabiting your body and pulling from the wisdom it holds and not just trying to figure things out in my head. I already know that does not work well, generally speaking, for me. I can think my way into a brown paper bag, right back out of it, and then right back into it. So yeah, I will overcomplicate things as I overthink them. So anyway, that's the somatic coaching practice. So feel free to check that out. Happy to answer any questions. You can contact me through the website, and we can chat more. So anyway, I'm really excited about the future of the podcast. lots more women's stories coming your way, and more women founders talking through things, talking through the realities of taking leaps of faith and what that actually can entail and feel like, and the fear and the scare and all the things. And of course, I'm also going to focus on some topics that have come up specifically over the last year, the big one being shame. So yeah, I'm going to speak with a woman named Patricia Dalen. She's a somatic practitioner. And so we're going to talk about shame specifically because that's an area of focus for her in her practice. And as a final note, I just want to acknowledge that, when we talk about taking leaps of faith and doing something new and jumping off and taking risks, like it sounds on the surface, it can be super glorious and glamorous sounding. And the hard part of it is confronting these old ideas, these old beliefs, and most importantly, these deep, deep, deep fears that are really driving so much of certainly my decisions or not making decisions. So just want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that money is not a small topic. I will be revisiting it on several occasions because it's such a big one and it's such a real world issue. And of course, there are some real practical considerations. So very mindful of that, very aware of that. So just unpacking that some more over time is another area I really want to focus on here in the podcast through guests I have, and also sharing more of my own personal journey with and through that, because it can feel like a real obstacle and a real limiting factor in the decisions that I make or that are available. So not only is it a scary thing, it's also, oftentimes not one of the things we want to talk about very openly or with anybody. So yeah, who wants to talk about money? I mean, it's a fraught subject. So this was by no means an exhaustive dipping of my toe into that realm, but the 1 year anniversary certainly brought that up for me. And it's definitely an area I want to explore further and deeper over the months ahead with guests, especially towards the end of the year. That's an area of focus where I'd like to put some energy and some emphasis, especially because there's, I know on my feed, I'm sure not by accident, there's all kinds of, thoughts, discussions, how to make money and how to do the thing the certain kind of way to make the money, so it's just like constantly, certainly in my face, there's a feeling of pressure around it and like, oh, I got to do more. I got to, right. And the simple bottom line thing is what I do know to be true today is the antidote, at least for me, is to ask for help. And it may not make and that doesn't have to be monetary help. It doesn't have to be, do this for me. It's, hey, I'm struggling. I need help with something. Can you help me? And then see where that takes me. So there's a lot more to unpack around this whole topic for sure. And it will be an area of focus in my conversations moving forward with my various guests. And I will do some deeper dive episodes later in the year around it and talk, dedicate some episodes specifically to this topic because it's such a big one. And there's just so much in and around it that I just feel like it deserves some time and attention. And let's get some expertise in here, some more experience in here, and just hear from others as to how they navigate their way through the fear around money, the need for money, and also this other piece of asking for help unattached to money and what's that really about. So, all right, y'all, looking forward to it. All righty, bye. Thank you for listening to The Stories That Sparkle, a space I created for women to share in their own voices the intricacies of their stories. And thank you for hanging out with me to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Stories That Sparkle podcast, for hanging out with me as I examine what sits underneath my need to keep moving and keep doing and doing and doing without stopping and not acknowledging or celebrating. So yeah, it's been really special to celebrate my 1-year podcast anniversary by acknowledging all the ways I don't want to celebrate and why. So yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to help support the work I'm doing and help me grow this platform to amplify other women's voices, please send this on to 2 friends, invite them to listen in, subscribe to my Substack, free or paid, hellarader.substack.com, or follow me on Instagram. Yeah, so lots of options, lots of different ways you can help support the work that I do and to help me get more women's stories out there. And on that note, if you have a story you want to share or a topic you'd like me to cover in an episode of the podcast, please drop me a line to hellarader@substack.com, because together we bring light into dark places.